This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. I covered over on my website the stuff going on in France and how, of course, all of these events that occur, while we all would like to believe they're naturally occurring things, you can always tell by looking at them if government agencies are involved, and then, of course, provoking and inciting people to join these riots. In France, what we saw, instead of, citizens really going against the government, they're going destroying small businesses, throwing bricks through windows, lighting businesses on fire, just like we saw in America with BLM. These are all obviously controlled by our own government, right? This is destroying, it's destroying infrastructure, which is what they want to do. But there's always little things tied into it, right? And of course, this was revealed right after all this stuff is going on, which is still going on. Of course, one of the things I mentioned on the website was Macron, the prime minister, president, whatever he wants to call himself over there, the placed stooge, the long lost lover of Justin Trudeau Castro. He, of course, was playing the role that we would see here in America with Biden and all other countries, right? While all the riots and stuff are going on, he's at an Elton John concert, right? Ignoring all this stuff, inciting more people to get mad and then join into the protests, which are controlled protests, because they're so livid at the behavior of these people, which is exactly what we're seeing in Canada, America, all over. Well, now we've heard, get this, that they've just passed a bill in France. That's right, they've passed a bill in France because a lot of these events, they do these so that they can pass these things and then people can't question why they're doing it. So they've been blaming these protests on social media, on people getting together online and doing this type of stuff. And the French Assembly has passed a bill allowing the police to remotely activate phone cameras and microphones for surveillance. And of course, we could say, well, the Patriot Act, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is going to be a worldwide thing. So French law enforcement now has the far-reaching authority to snoop into your home, even take photos on your own phone of what's going on in your home, and of course listen to you, which they already do in America, but coming to every country worldwide momentarily. Take a look at what's going on in France.
Days after violence erupted in France, the French Senate has now passed a controversial law granting sweeping powers to police authority. This after the country was engulfed in riots after the police fatally shot a teenager in a Paris suburb city. According to reports, French police can now spy on suspects by remotely activating cameras, microphones, and the GPS location system of a phone. Devices can be remotely activated to record images as well as sound. This technology will be employed to track suspects in the spotlight for terror offenses, delinquency, and organized crime.
Well, considering you can call anything terror.
Covering the cameras and microphones of electronic devices can empower the police to geolocate certain suspects.
Oh, so if you try to cover your microphone and whatnot, you're more of a threat?
As punishment.
Wow.
In a Senate debate, lawmakers from President Macron's party widely supported the bill. Members of Parliament argued that the remote spying will be used when justified by the nature and seriousness of the crime. The use of remote spying shall be approved by a judge, and maximum duration of surveillance should not exceed more than 6 months. Sensitive professions such as doctors, journalists, lawyers, judges, and MPs shall be exempt from the provisions of this. France's Minister of Justice issued a statement to dispel concerns. He said, and this is a quote, "We are far away from the totalitarianism of George Orwell's 1984. In May,
you sure about that one?
Groups raised concern against this bill, calling it a slide into heavy-handed security. Some experts believe that the move infringes on fundamental liberties, such as rights to security,
just some people think that?
And private correspondence.
Gotta give that
so
little bit of,
what's the word I'm thinking of? Now let's define criminal, right? Because of course the common zombie out there hears this, they're like, so what? Let them snoop on a criminal. And again, I've been talking about recently why they put all these shows out there about true crimes over and over and over again, and how these CCTV cameras and these people who have Rings or have Alexas are ending up helping solve cold cases, or not cold cases with that type of tech, but they're helping solve crimes where the police aren't able to find any suspect. But thankfully to the technology, it's above the police, it's above humans, and it's actually helping solve crime. So they're planting seeds for more and more people to have this type of technology in their home. Same thing they're doing, of course, with the thing in Idaho. I've talked about the killer in Idaho with the DNA, right? I've talked about how people are willingly being duped into giving their DNA to Ancestry.com and these other companies like Ancestry.com who are working directly with the government. That's not a conspiracy. They openly admit that after people submit their DNA, that DNA goes to the government, right? So people hear that and they're like, that's a good thing because look, we wouldn't have been able to find this person was the killer because we wouldn't have their DNA. So we need everyone's DNA. These are all mind control methods they're using with using crimes that have been committed to start telling people that this technology can solve cases, stop crime, etc. Right? First it's solve crime. Next it's stop crime by having the tech in your home. So they're using alleged criminals as the term here. So people hear that and they're like, oh, well, you know what? Some guy's plotting to do something, an insurrection, et cetera, et cetera. What they're really doing is listening to anybody that's actually exposing or talking about what the government's doing, the government overreach, the communist government, what's really going on, all the stuff that I talk about, you guys talk about, that's what it's about. Because to them, we're the real criminals, and our government in America has even admitted that, calling us extremists and all this other crap. So lawmakers in France's National Assembly have passed a bill that lets police surveil suspects by remotely activating cameras, microphones, and GPS location systems on phones and other devices. And again, like I mentioned with the true crime stuff, another thing that they always do to solve the crime is they'll go, oh, well, we tracked that person's phone and it pinged here, pinged there. And people watch that and they're like, this is great, we're going to catch the criminal. And they don't think about how their privacy is being violated and how they're being indoctrinated into wanting and accepting this technology that the government really wants to just track and survey you. They use these true crime cases to get you on board with it, to make you feel safe, like, oh, you don't have to worry about something happening to your family member or whatever, because we'll be able to track their every movement. Thus, you give up all your rights, and then when the government admits that they've actually turned on you, and that the whole purpose of this system is to monitor you, and if you don't act like the zombies, like in the video I recently uploaded to China, where these people don't even seem human, they're like, this is a great thing that they're tracking us. This person couldn't get on a train because he posted something on Twitter that sounded anti-government, and he wasn't allowed to board the train. That's great, though. It makes his behavior change, so he's a better person,
like
which is everything that Larry Fink and BlackRock are trying to do. And that's what we're going to end up having, is a society of that. Brain dead. We already are pretty close to it, but they actually are such nervous Nellies that we live amongst. They love these true crime shows because they, first of all, they're fascinated by it, but the whole purpose of why it's being promoted isn't because they get so many views and everybody's interested in them. Everything has an agenda behind it, and you'll notice that all these shows, they have your GPS pinging to find the killer, the DNA, oh, we couldn't find the DNA, but we put the DNA in a database, and we were able to find out the whole family DNA. Then we were able to narrow it down to who the killer was, et cetera, of insane things that our government wants to do to all of us, but they use these types of things to tell people it's good for them. So the same thing will be here with France, right? They're saying, oh, the police can surveil suspects by remotely activating cameras, microphones, and GPS systems, right? While all this stuff is going on there deliberately, right? This chaos over there. Oh, well, now we could, we'll make sure that people aren't getting together online trying to orchestrate protests when in reality our government's the ones who are orchestrating all these protests. I mean, Antifa, BLM, all the governments are behind all of these things, and they do nothing about it except try to get more citizens and civilians in. The insurrection, another perfect example, started by our own government. So they say a judge will have to approve use of the powers, and the recently amended bill forbids use against journalists, lawyers, and other sensitive professions, according to Le Monde. The measure is also meant to limit use to serious cases and only for a maximum of 6 months. Wink, wink, right? So they put these little loosey-goosey terms in there so that you're like, oh, it's only for 6 months. It's forever, okay? I mean, the Patriot Act got passed here. It was supposed to be for the boogeyman in Afghanistan, and it's still going on. The NSA is listening to everything every day, and that's one of the ways it's easier for them to censor people online. It's just because they have people on target lists, watch lists, yours included, even though I'm a new YouTuber. Geolocation would be limited to crimes that are punishable by at least 5 years in prison. So the geolocation, of course, but I mean, this stuff is just unbelievable, the overreach of these governments and the fact that citizens are allowing it. And of course, again, if these were natural protests, people wouldn't be burning small business owners who have nothing to do with what's going on. They wouldn't be going after one another. Liberals and Republicans would come together and overthrow overreach of Congress and the people in power who are doing this. All the governments of the world, the left and the right on both sides, are dividing all of the people against one another and getting away with it. No worse case than here in America with the insanity that they're convincing the liberal people to believe and buy into. the castration of children. It's insane. It's just utterly insane. So, an earlier version of the bill passed the Senate, but the amendment will require the legislature's body approval before it can become into law. Civil liberty advocates are alarmed. The digital rights groups previously pointed out the potential for abuse, as the bill isn't clear about what constitutes a serious crime. There are fears the French government might use this to target environmental activists and others who aren't grave threats. The organization also notes that worrying security policies have a habit of expanding to less serious crimes. Well, of course, and that's the whole point. They're not looking to find the next, Manchurian candidate, Ted Bundy. They're just looking to make sure that nobody has got any this is how China works, right? You speak against the government, you could be imprisoned in China. You speak against the government, you have your bank account frozen, okay? Speaking against them, not like, I'm going to, trying to start an organized crime group. You think they're looking for the mob with this technology? They're looking for you. They're looking for me. Anyone who even says that this government sucks, they'll be at your front door armed, right? Oh, you're saying that this outbreak isn't real? We're going to arrest you because you're not buying into our propaganda, which we're doing such a poor job of executing that it's actually waking people up, but we won't take responsibility for our crappy job and our crappy, Tavistock Institute, mind control freaks that we put on the news every night. They're not doing enough to convince you that this is going on, and you're speaking against it. Well, we're going to arrest you instead of maybe training these people to do a better job. So the groups that are against this further note that the remote access may depend on security vulnerabilities. Police will be exploiting security holes instead of telling manufacturers how to patch those holes. The legislation comes as concerns about government device surveillance are growing. There's been backlash against this group, but of course, there's backlash against the group. But both parties in Congress pass it, right? What does that tell you? Why would any conservative party or people who are supposedly conservative, why would they ever allow this type of overreach by the government? Because they're in on it. That's why. They're working together. But as long as you don't point a finger at them and you point one at the other political party, then they're fine. That's what they care about. Making us point fingers at each other. Making us point fingers at the opposite party, right? Republicans point at the liberals. Liberals point at the Republicans. Then you switch. Then you get another clown in office. Trump comes back or some other DeSantis, right? It goes back and forth and nothing gets done. Trump was supposed to drain the swamp. How does the swamp look? Looks pretty dirty to me. Pretty filthy. Nothing happened. Hillary's supposed to go to jail. We were supposed to look into the pizza situation. Nothing happened and nothing will happen. They just drive people mad on both sides, and that's the point. Put all your energy into these clowns while they continue to pass bills like this all around the world where they're getting access to not just your home where you're willingly putting stuff in there like the Ring, which again, I've covered that before, right? The Ring, all that surveillance footage goes right to the police without your consent. Right? Putting the election in your home, you're like, it's not a big deal, right? How about the story I did a couple weeks ago before the channel got terminated? The other guy's channel got terminated. Whether somebody was supposedly said something racial to an Amazon driver, the guy told the higher ups at Amazon, and they locked the guy out of all his Amazon products, so he wasn't able to do things in his home. His house was locked. He was under attack from Amazon features that he had in his home, his smart security, etc. Right? This is what we're allowing to happen because we all point fingers at each other instead of pointing fingers at the people who are responsible. And there's such a small portion of these people that it's amazing they're getting away with this. But they are, and we live amongst very, very sensitive and very, very stupid people. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families.